Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back. Greg Anthony here, and today I wanted to talk about the Islamic connection to the Vatican and to the United States government and what actually is going on behind the scenes. Don't buy Trump's foreign policy. Even though he's speaking a big tune of a Make America Great Again, we're going to stop ISIS, it's not going to happen. And the reason is Turkey. We just have to look at Turkey and what's going on there. Now, Erdogan, the president, recently was at the White House. So you think we have a chummy relationship with Erdogan. That isn't true either. Now, Erdogan also is one of the players, one of the Pope's puppets, and they play a nice game for the public. But really, what you have to look at, if the American government wanted to stop radical Islam, they would take the imam that's living in the Pocono Mountains right now, and you know who I'm talking about, and they would have him extradited out of this country or put in jail. Now, this man has created more havoc than you ever want to know around the world. His name is Fetullah Gulen. He's protected by the United States government, by President Trump. Erdogan has asked publicly before to have him removed and brought back to Turkey, subject to treason violations. However, the subject never came up when Erdogan came to the United States recently. This man, Fetullah Gulen, resides not in the mountains of Turkey or Afghanistan, but he is being given mansions and millions of taxpayer dollars to live in northeastern Pennsylvania. Now, if the American government was serious about getting rid of radical Islam, the key would have been to first remove this man and to begin to wipe out a number of radical Islamic terrorists that are allowed and given protection by the FBI and the CIA in our country. The rest of it's all show, folks. And the most dangerous Islamist in the world is, like I said, he's not Afghani or Arab. He comes from neither Sudan nor Somalia, and he resides in neither the mountains of Pakistan nor the deserts of the Palestinian territory. And let me quote from an article from Freedom Outpost. They say this: the individual has toppled the secular government of Turkey and established madrassahs throughout the world. Now, the story you get from the mainstream media is that Erdogan is the bad guy. And Fetullah Gulen is this man who's preaching only moderate Islamic teachings. But that's a cover. And his schools indoctrinate children in our country and all over the world to the tenets of radical Islam and prepare adolescents for the Islamization of the world. So all of this garbage you hear on Fox News, all of this garbage you hear on CNN, and all of this garbage you hear from the White House that we're going to destroy radical Islam is not what they're doing. It's a show. They're going after these terrorists that were created by us and the Vatican as a show. And they're allowing radical Islam to grow through Fetullah Gulen, who's given millions of taxpayer dollars. He's allowed to set up these schools. And the reason I'm telling you this is because 10 years ago, I discussed this many, many times when I was talking about his movements in Europe, and he did the same thing there. And then when I found out that the Clintons brought him over here in the 90s, protected him, you can go Google Bill Clinton and see what he said about this man. He admired him and said that we need him here, and this will be the bridge between Christianity and Islam. It's crazy. And check out the Clinton connection to Gulen and how much money that's passed hands between radical Islam and the Clintons. Obama, who was nothing more than an Islamic plant that did everything under the sun to destroy this country in all of his policies, whether foreign or domestic. And now we have Trump who's trying to turn the tide, but this is just a game. It's the left-right Hegelian dialectic game. Now, there's more than 90 of these madrassahs have been established, and that was as of 2013, as charter schools throughout the United States. They're funded by American taxpayers. You know, your tax money is supporting radical Islam. And they're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you, no, this is supporting the good side of Islam. But like I said, if you look at the studies that have been done about how Islamization takes place, when there are small numbers, they act as if they're very timid and they want to blend in. But they never seem to as their numbers grow. Sharia law takes place and your country will go down the tubes, just like some of the European countries are right now. And who allowed those people in? The leaders of the countries, who also work for the Pope. Now, some people, when I say that, say, that's impossible. Well, it isn't. And if you look at the research done regarding the connection between the Vatican and the United States throughout its course of history, and as well as all of the leaders in the world, you will see that what we call the Vatican-led Illuminati is real. Now, so you American taxpayers are funding Fetullah Gulen and these charter schools, while at the same time the Democratic Party is putting up a stink because of Trump's appointment to the Department of Education, who wants to allow poor people to have the right to go to charter schools. So let's get it straight. The Democrats and the Republicans allow charter school to radicalize for radical Islam in the guise of moderation, while they fight this complete left and right battle over charter schools for poor people and American citizens. Doesn't make sense unless they want to take this country and destroy it, which they're doing slowly. Now, one of them is in Minnesota called Tarek ibn Zayed Academy, TiZA, in Minnesota. Is so radically Islamic and subversive in nature that the Minnesota Department of Education issued 2 citations against it, and the American Civil Liberties Union is suing it. Dozens of its universities, including Faith University in Istanbul, train young men to become lawyers, accountants, and political leaders so that they can take an active part in the restoration of the Ottoman Empire and the Islamization of the Western world. Now, why would he be allowed to stay here? If Erdogan, when there was that coup in Turkey that was a failed coup in Turkey, and he then immediately asked our government to release Fetullah Gulen, why, when he came here to visit Trump, that was never mentioned, and Fetullah Gulen still resides in the wilds in the northeastern Pennsylvania, because Trump is working with them. He also, allegedly, operates compounds, trains jihadis in the tactics of guerrilla warfare. And this was proven 10 years ago when I was doing the story about him in Norway and other countries. This individual has amassed a fortune, over $30 billion, for the creation of a universal caliphate. Now, according to the Freedom Outpost, here's what they say. From his fortress headquarters, located on 28 acres at 1857 Mount Eaton Road in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania, Fetullah Gulen plots the overthrow of secular governments and oversees the spread of education jihad throughout Asia, Europe, and the United States. This is not an exaggeration. And our FBI, CIA, and our government protect him and actually give him money. But this is never mentioned. Even on your most right-wing Sean Hannity shows and all of these others. And please, someone send this show to Sean Hannity, and maybe I will. But please do it. It always has more strength as some of my listeners send it in. Gulen is surrounded. He's surrounded by an army of over 100 Turkish Islamists who guard him and tend to his needs. The army is comprised of armed militants who wear suits and ties and do not look like traditional Islamists in cloaks and turbans. They follow the master lord's orders, and even refrain from marrying until age 50 per his instructions. When they do marry, their spouses are expected to dress in the Islamic manner, as dictated by Gulen himself. And we allow him here? And Clinton, Hillary, is is still advocating women's rights? Really? The Saylorsburg property consists of a massive chalet surrounded by, this is amazing, by numerous outbuildings, including recreational centers, dormitories, cabins for visiting foreign dignitaries, a helicopter pad, and the firing ranges. Now, what member of Congress has ever come out and said anything about this? None. Why? Because they're all in the same pocket fighting this Hegelian dialectic in front of you so that you are never going to get to the truth. And before you know it, America will look more Islamist than Christian. Okay, so now, the Saylorsburg property, like I said, a massive chalet, helicopter pads. Neighbors even complain of incessant sounds of gunfire, including a rat-tat-tat of fully automatic weapons, according to Freedom Outpost, who's checked this guy out, from the compound, and low-flying helicopter that circles the area in search of intruders. Now, this is a moderate? He's teaching principles of moderate Islam? There is no such thing. It's a cover. The FBI has been called to the scene, the neighbors say, but no action has ever been taken to end the illegal activity. Sentries stand guard at the gates to the estate to turn away all curiosity seekers. Try to get in there. Now, with the sentry hut are widescreen televisions that project high-resolution images from security cameras. Before the hut is a sign that reads, Golden Generation Worship and Retreat Center. It's really hard for local residents, according to Freedom Outpost, to understand that the Muslim who operates this compound is not an American political or intelligence officer, but rather a radical Islamist from Turkey. That's well known. That we were talking about this 10 years ago. And I'll add some more tomorrow with my guest I'm having from Italy. But anyway, that's what's happening, folks. Someone, write your congressman. You think you're going to get an answer? You think they're going to take away this guy's millions that we give him in our American tax money, and then they say they're fighting Islamic terrorism? No. They're allowing it to grow here while they send out their false flag terrorists all over the world to create a cover for what's really going on. Now, Gulen fled Turkey in 1998 with the help of the Clintons to avoid prosecution on charges that he was attempting to undermine Turkey's secular government with the objective of establishing an Islamic government. Now, if we are friends, or, Turkey is our ally, right, supposedly, and we have a military base there with nuclear missiles. Now, Erdogan, if you get the story straight, you know what they wanted to do? Our government wanted to get rid of Erdogan, and when it failed, now they have to cover their tracks. Because really, Turkey was it's like the firewall in that part of the world, which is a more secular Turkish government. It's more democratic than any Islamic country in that area. And what is the United States doing? Trying to destroy it by allowing Gulen to remain here after all of his crimes against what we call our ally. But is that can't you see the game they're playing at the top level here? Since his arrival in Pennsylvania, Gulen and the Department of Homeland Security has been trying to deport him. Now that's just a front. So why can't they deport him? But in 2008, one of the Vatican's federal judges ruled that Gulen was an individual with, and this is what the court said, extraordinary ability in the field of education, who merited permanent residence status in the U.S. Are you kidding me? That's that's justice in America, correct? The ruling remains quizzical, doesn't it, says the Freedom Outpost, because Gulen has no formal education or training. Look, he's a CIA asset. Let's call him what he is. And Gulen, according to the Middle East Quarterly, was a student and follower of Sheikh Said Qutb, 1878 to 1960, also known as Said Nursi, the founder of Islamic Noor Light Movement, a radical group. After Turkey's War of Independence, Kurdi demanded in an address to the new parliament that the new republic be based on Sharia Islamic principles. He was a follower of this man. He turned against Ataturk. Now we know the importance of Ataturk, do your history in Turkey, and his reforms against the new modern secular Western Republic. So how powerful, the question must be asked, is this man? And why is he such a threat to America and the Western world? And why is Trump, why did Obama, why did Bush allow him to stay here if they're not all working together, playing the left-right game and making fools out of all of us? Consider this, says the Freedom Outpost. Turkey is now ruled by the Justice and Democratic Party, a party under Gulen's control. Abdullah Gül, Turkey's first Islamist president, is a Gulen disciple along with Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan and Yusuf Ziya Okan, the head of Turkey's Council of Higher Education. So are they playing a game here? Yes. Under the AKP, that party, Turkey has transformed from a secular state into an Islamic country with 85,000 active mosques, one for every 350 citizens, the highest number per capita in the world. 90,000 imams, more imams than teachers and physicians, and thousands of state-run Islamic schools. Despite the rhetoric of European Union accession, Turkey has transferred its alliance from Europe and the United States to Russia and Iran. It has moved towards friendship with Hamas, Hezbollah, and Syria, and created a pervasive anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, and anti-American animus throughout the populace. Speaking on Monday, this was 3 years ago, speaking at the inauguration ceremony, the new channel of the state-run TV station, TRT, Erdogan, Prime Minister Erdogan, said Turkey will always be on the side of Muslims wherever they are. So what's this game going on? Why did Trump allow him to come here? And what was the story on never mentioning anything now about Gulen? Gulen's tendencies, remember this, stretch throughout the country since his followers, known as Fetullahists, have gained control of the country's media outlets, its financial institutions and banks, and its business organizations. So if America wants to help Turkey, if America wants to get rid of radical Islam, why do they leave him here and give him millions of dollars? It is the key Achilles heel to their whole story. And you're never going to hear it. Oh, you may hear a little bit. I remember one time I heard a little story about it was more or less these radical Islamic camps that are overtly practicing Sharia law, protected by the United States, one in a place called Islamburg, New York. And why are they allowed to stay? When you actually got videos of them saying death to America, and they're marching with weapons on property that's probably given to them by the government in upstate New York. That's one of, they say, over 30 of these camps. According to Bayram Balki, a Turkish scholar, the Gulen schools that have been established throughout the world seek to expand the Islamization of Turkey's nationality and the Turkification of Islam in order to bring about a universal caliphate run by Islamic law. Wow. It's amazing to me what's going on right before our eyes. And several countries have outlawed the establishment of Gulen schools and communities within their borders, including, guess who, Russia and Uzbekistan. Even the Netherlands, a nation that embraces pluralism and tolerance, has opted to cut funding to the Gulen schools because of their imminent threat to the social order. But Gulen's activities, according to the Freedom Outpost, in the United States, including the establishment of the armed fortress in the midst of the Pocono Mountains, have escaped national press attention. I wonder why. Do you ever think that Rupert Murdoch's a Knight of Malta, and the left and the right really play a game to keep you occupied? And all of these stories go under the radar for a reason. They want to destroy this country from within as well as from without, from outside. In his public statements, the Gulen espouses a liberal version of Sunni Hanafi Islam and promotes the Muslim notion of hizmet, altruistic service to the common good. It's kind of like the Vatican talking on both sides of their mouth as well. Despite the parliamentary training at his Pocono fortress, Gulen has condemned terrorism. Of course, so has the Pope. But they instill it. They create it. And call for the what do you think? They're going to tell you what they do? And called for interfaith dialogue. That's what the Pope does too. He has met with John Paul II, the Greek Orthodox Patriarch in the Greek Orthodox Church, and Israel's Sephardic head. He's met with all of them. In private, Gulen has stated that, quote, in order to reach the ideal Muslim society, every method and path is acceptable, including lying to people. He said that in a sermon that was aired on Turkish television. You got to listen to this. Let me see how much time. I don't want to miss it. We only got 3 minutes here. Why don't we listen to this sermon on the other side of the break, okay? And you're going to be amazed. And again, I ask the simple question, why does President Trump allow this man to stay if he is the one that comes out openly saying, I want to fight radical Islam? It's because that's just what he says outwardly. Just like Gulen, just like the Pope, just like all of them. While they keep you occupied with this false, they're building up troops in Afghanistan. There's going to be more terrorist attacks. Why they do that? Inside, we have the real problem that's going to erupt here, and it's going to cause havoc. And unless we have no press anymore, folks, you can't listen to Fox or any of these news channels to get the real story. And you got to also watch out for some of these internet clowns like Alex Jones and a number of others, David Icke, who are just giving you, they're going to talk like, they'll talk against Gulen. But you see, they want to lead you by the nose so that they can control what the information is coming out. They put their men at the top, the big guys with all the money. I mean, come on. You got to listen to some of the hypocrisy that comes out of InfoWars and some of these other. They're even mentioned in the mainstream, and that's a giveaway, because they think of Alex Jones on the mainstream. And I heard it many times on Fox that he's a nut, that he's a conspiracy theorist, and so that's how they use him. But anyway, the real story about Islam is right here with this man, and unless we get smart and demand. Even if we demand that every one of them, if we sent 10 million letters to every politician, to everybody in government, do you think he'd be removed? Hell no. Because inside we have a problem. We have even the President of the United States protecting a radical Islamist. And if you ask him, he'll say, oh no, he's a moderate, just a moderate. And the question becomes, when are we ever going to get that from the mainstream? Never, never, never. And so, as we move forward, I want you to listen to this sermon that this man, Gulen, who's being protected by millions of dollars of American taxpayer money, what he said on Turkish television. And we're going to do that on the other side of the break, back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Okay, back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. And before I get back to Fetullah Gulen, I'd like to make some personal announcement about the Investigative Journal. Once about every 5 years, I run into problems financially. This show is not viable. I'm sure if I didn't talk about the Vatican and its connection, that I could probably be swimming in money, so to speak, or at least living normally. So anyway, I want to ask all my listeners to pass this around and to donate to the Investigative Journal by going to arcticbeacon.com. And then you'll see a donate button, and it goes directly to this show. Now, many people get confused because First Amendment does my broadcasts it. Donations to First Amendment are separate from me, and I feel that they probably do get donations from my show, and that's really because they do a lot of work for me. They put together my videos, all that stuff. But I work separately. And here's my plan in the future. One, I'm going to continue broadcasting on First Amendment with a more biblical, secular approach as I've always done. But I'm starting my own blog that's going to be more secular in nature, maybe a little bit more palpable, so that I can continue this broadcast. And I will be alerting you of that blog, which will be a paid blog, and hopefully enough to make ends meet, which means I have to get a new website, and I'm looking for someone to do that. So if you know of a website creator that can help me, please contact me at gregbeacon@gmail.com. And I don't want any of these. Look, I'm going to really screen the people, because the last time I got somebody, some help from my website from who I thought was a friend, gave me probably a perpetrator who put half of it up. It's still up on my site now. And I spent a lot of money and got screwed, to be honest with you. And I don't appreciate the guy who sent me that, and he knows who he is. And you might say he puts himself out there as the supreme commander, the supreme man of knowledge regarding the Vatican and the Jesuits. That's self-explanatory, right? I'm doing the same thing Alex Jones used to do with me when I was on my program, when I had a program on Genesis right after his or before his. I remember it was really funny when you get on Genesis, that's the station Alex Jones is on. You have to sign an agreement that you do not criticize the broadcast host, which was there really to protect him. But he would criticize me by not using my name, but everybody knew who it was. So a bunch of double talk from those guys as well. But anyway, that's it. So please donate to this show directly to me at arcticbeacon@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, and everything will be appreciated, and I'll keep you informed on the new blog show post I'm going to be doing, which is geared to keep this show alive. Anyway, continue also supporting FirstAmendmentRadio.com. And one other thing, Nicholas contacted me, and he wants to do a debate. I remember a long time ago I did a debate between Eric Phelps and Michael, what's his name, Piper, regarding Michael Collins Piper. He said the Jews were the main problem, and Eric, of course, said it was the Vatican. I did a debate, and that's still out on the internet, a lot of views. And that was 10 years ago or more. Now, Nicholas wants to do a debate, having me as the moderator. He states that the earth it doesn't move, but is a sphere, and I'm trying to find somebody who I've talked, I've had on through their videos and presentations, and others who say that the Bible states that the earth is flat and is not a sphere. Now, the guidelines are going to be simply biblical. We're not going to get into more common sense. We don't want common sense into this debate, so to speak. And it's good this way. Let's see what the Bible says about it. And then you can take your views and then expand them by looking with your own eyes and doing your own research and coming to a conclusion. Now, I have to be honest. I'm going to try to be non-biased by just asking questions, just allowing these men to talk when I set it up. And this is probably down the road a month or so. Because I am biased, I do believe the earth isn't a sphere and doesn't move. So that's just me. So don't hold it against me. Let's get back to Fetullah Gulen. Okay, I have a few more words about Gulen. Then we're going to move on to the Islamic connection to the Vatican. Okay, now let's get this straight. The federal courts allow Fetullah Gulen to stay, saying he was a great man of education, and they gave him permanent residency. Vatican judge, of course. And so he's a permanent resident. Now, we know that he is not a moderate Muslim. Now, was this brought up in court? Here's a sermon that he gave on Turkish television. Was this brought up? No, of course not. Because the courts are fixed. You must move, he said this, you must move in the arteries of the system without anyone noticing your existence until you reach all the power centers. Sounds like the Jesuits, doesn't it? Their oath. Until the conditions are ripe, they, the followers, must continue like this. If they do something prematurely, the world will crush our heads and Muslims will suffer everywhere, like in the tragedies in Algeria in 1982 and Syria, like in yearly disasters and tragedies in Egypt. The time is not right. You must wait for the time when you are complete and conditions are ripe until we can shoulder the entire world and carry it. You must, he means carry it with Sharia law. You must wait until such time as you've gotten all the state power, until you have brought to your side all the power of the constitutional institutions in Turkey, Until that time, any step taken would be too early, like breaking an egg without wanting the full 40 days for it to hatch. It would be like killing the chick inside. The work to be done is in confronting the world. Now, I have expressed my feelings and thoughts to you all. In confidence, in trusting your loyalty and secrecy, I know that when you leave here, just as you discard your empty juice boxes, you must discard the thoughts and the feelings that I expressed here. Now, why has the federal government opted to turn a blind eye to Gulen and his mountain fortress? Why have Gulen's madrassahs been kept under the radar screen of Homeland Security? Why have the CIA and the FBI allowed Gulen to wreak havoc and topple secular governments without interruption or intervention? These, folks, are the questions that need to be answered. Okay, now, I want to move on, and for the last few minutes, I've done this before, but I want to reiterate it. I'm going to turn to Walter Veith. He's a Seventh-day Adventist, former Catholic, and he gave a great presentation on the Islamic connection. And so I want to play a part of that here to end the show today. Okay, this is how the Vatican created Islam.
The Islamic connection is the name of this lecture, and it's quite a story. The Islamic religion is huge today, and it has some very fascinating features. It's a very exclusive religion. Nobody from the outside is allowed in. If there are pilgrimages to Mecca, only those of the Islamic faith are allowed to go to these pilgrimages. It is an exclusive religion. Evangelism in Islamic countries is totally forbidden. This religion has full control of the entire territory which it controls. Now, who and what is Islam? Millions of people make the pilgrimages to Mecca, where they worship at the shrine of Muhammad. What a privilege it is for them to make the pilgrimage. There's another religion which also propagates pilgrimages, and that is Catholicism. So you have pilgrimages to Lourdes and the Marian sites and to Fatima. Pilgrimage is a symbol of the great pagan religions of the past as well. Now, who was Muhammad? Muhammad Mustafa was born in 570 AD and he died in 632 AD. He fled to Medina in 622 AD after Khadija's death. Now, who was Khadija? Muhammad married Khadija when he was 25 and she was 40 years old. Her cousin, Varakwa, was a Roman Catholic, and she came from a Roman Catholic convent. So we could say she was a Roman Catholic nun. She was super rich. She lived in a convent, and she had the whole of the economy, basically, in her hand. And she employed this young man, Muhammad, whom she then also married. Muhammad marched on Mecca in 630 AD, 2 years before he died and 4 years before Umar became caliph. And the Quran was compiled in 650 AD. And Muhammad, who couldn't write himself, had a scribe to write down what he saw and what he heard. And the Quran is different, apparently, from all other religious writings because it was a directly dictated book. So it is not just transcribed by a prophet, so they teach, but it is the very word of God, and therefore it must always remain in its original Arabic language. That is what is taught in the Islamic religion. The symbol of Islam is the sickle moon and the star. The star within the sickle moon. Now, where does this symbol come from? And who is Allah? Well, let's go to some interesting quotes, also from encyclopedias of religion and etc. Allah, he was the moon god who married the sun goddess. Together they produced 3 goddesses who were called the daughters of Allah. These 3 goddesses were called Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. The Encyclopedia of Religion mentions that Allah is a pre-Islamic name corresponding to the Babylonian Bel. Fascinating. So this is an ancient pagan religion, and Bel, or Baal, is the deity. We read in Morals and Dogma, page 451, the Arabian word Aldebaran means the foremost or leading star, and it could only have been so named when it did precede or lead all others. The year then opened with the sun in Taurus and the multitude of ancient sculptures both in Assyria and Egypt, wherein the bull appears with lunette or crescent horns, and the disk of the sun between them, are direct allusions to important festivals of the first new moon of the year, and there was everywhere an annual celebration of the festival of the first new moon when the year opened with Sol, the sun, and Luna, the moon, in Taurus, and the symbol of Taurus is that one over there. The crescent and disk combined always represent the conjunctive sun and moon. That means basically the male-female deity. Adoration of the celestial cow, Met Veret, there's the all-seeing eye, the eye of Osiris. Here are the horns, there is the disk in the horns, and it also represented the plunging of the sun god into the womb of the mother to be born by Isis. So the horns are also a representation of the moon, the sickle moon. So in later religions, or from Babylon itself, Assyrian style, there you have the half moon with a solar disk in it. And the same over here, enlarged. Note that this is Baal Hadad, the birth of the sun. If we go to Mesopotamia, we'll find the old symbol of Baal and Bel was exactly the same, the half moon and the star in it, representing the birth of the sun. Isis and Osiris, the male-female aspect. So this would be Ashtoreth and Tammuz, or Isis and Horus, the male-female. The same you find in Egyptian, as we have already discussed it. This is Baal worship. This is Lucifer worship in his male-female form. Now, the papacy has exactly the same thing, because the Pope is today the representative of the Babylonian religion. So when he says the Mass, he has a round wafer disc, its roundness coming as a symbol of Baal. And after a Mass, it is placed in a monstrance, which is a half moon. So then you have the birth of the sun, and you have it symbolized in this form. Here's another monstrance in which the host is placed, representing the birth of the sun. So Catholicism uses the symbol of the half moon with the sun or the star in it. Here's a Roman Catholic church in Germany, and it has this interesting clock on it, which I photographed. There's the moon, and there is the star. And this particular star here has 8 points, and as this clock moves round, of course every time, the long arm and the short arm intercalate, you have the birth of the sun god. Baal Hadad, Baal Hadad, Baal Hadad, every now and then, every hour of the day. Very interesting. So the symbol of Catholicism is the moon and the star, hidden, of course, in many other symbols as well. Now, this ancient religion existed before Islam, and the initiates of this religion, as we saw in Morals and Dogma, were the insiders, like Origen, for example, and the Bishop of Alexandria. These were the initiates who harbored the ancient religion. And they were Christian, so-called, but of course they were not Christian. They just propagated that for the Goyim, Catholicism. True Christianity, they fought tooth and nail and tried to eradicate, and they tried to eradicate the Word of God, as we saw, by changing it. Now, Islam arrives on the scene way after that. So the true harborers were in Christianity before they were in Islam, and they were in two places, Alexandria and Rome. Alexandria was eventually taken over by Christianity, and the bastion, the great library, was destroyed, and the final seat of the occult knowledge was in Rome. So Rome is the seat of the ancient occult knowledge before Islam even appeared on the scene. That is the fact. And this ancient occultism had a potent enemy. Who was that enemy? Christianity. Christianity was growing in the place where the disciples had taught it. Christianity was growing in the heartland of the Middle East, Asia Minor, all the way up to India, the Bible says, into the north of Africa. That is where true Christian doctrine prevailed. They kept the Sabbath. Only Alexandria and Rome did not keep the Sabbath. Alexandria soon disappeared as a seat, and then the Sabbath was not kept in Rome. Very interesting history. So the symbol that Catholicism uses is the star and the sickle moon, and this star, by the way, is exactly the same star as is used in Islam. Isn't that interesting? I wonder who gave rise to whom. Obviously the one who is first can only give rise to the one who comes second, and not the one second give rise to the one who comes first. Isn't that correct? We think about it. So in Catholicism we find the half moon or the sickle moon with the deities in them. We find Mary replacing Jesus Christ as the mediatrix of all graces. The mediator, the sole mediator and advocate, is replaced by Mary. So here in this Roman Catholic monastery, Christ puts the crown of thorns onto Mary, and she has the holes in her hands. Mary is always depicted as coming out of a cave. Now the ancient deities always came out of a cave. Loyola, the Jesuit, received all his information in a cave, and it is interesting that Muhammad received all of his information in a cave. That's paganism. That has nothing to do with Christianity. Now here we see in Islamic countries, in this particular one over here, we have this strange structure over here, and we have a statue of Mary on top of it. And Mary there appeared, apparently, as this little gazelle. But before the king shot it, it changed into Mary, and she told him to build a monastery. And that she did, or that he did, and there is the monastery, high up on a hill. Now, whenever I find a monastery high up on a hill, I'm very interested, because high hills were pagan high places, where they sacrificed to pagan deities. It is interesting that all the cathedrals in the world are built on pagan places of worship. Even the Vatican is built on a pagan site of worship. Nothing has changed. So when I came to this particular place in the Middle East, I went to look for the ancient place of worship, and sure enough, on the hill, there it is, the triple arches of the ancient deity of sacrifice in the cave, as per usual. It's interesting that Mary always appears in the cave. In Fatima, she's in the cave. In Lourdes, she's in the cave. The Pope is always visiting the cave and worshipping in the cave. As Osiris represented the sun in Egyptian law, Isis represented the moon, but the truth is that Osiris represented the male active generative powers of nature, while Isis represented the female passive or prolific powers. That's Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. So it's actually a form of nature worship. These people would do well in the Bohemian Grove, worshipping the trees. The Templar revelation identifies Isis as the Black Madonna on no less authority than a former head of the Priory of Zion. The Black Madonna cult is century to the Priory of Zion. To them, at least, there is no doubt about the significance of the Black Madonna. You see, Osiris was both black and he was white. And he's worshipped as black and he is worshipped as white. Mary is worshipped as a black Madonna and as a white Madonna. So we have all these interesting nuances. The Hittites used the symbol of the half moon and the solar deity. This symbol today, of course, is used by none other than the United Nations. Well, let us travel to an Islamic country today. Here is a Catholic cathedral in Amman. And I'm photographing this Catholic cathedral standing at the mosque. So I'm standing on the ground of the mosque and I'm photographing the Catholic cathedral right opposite. Now, it's interesting how Catholicism and Islam stand side by side in all the Islamic countries. And every time, I'm so surprised to see the cathedral and the mosque next to each other. You see, if you know the inside religion, behind the scenes they're actually the same. So if I look at the symbolism on the outside of the Catholic cathedral, I have the symbol of the sun, because it was the symbol of the sun worship. And the cross, of course, the symbol also of the sun god. And there is the symbol of the sun. If I go across the street, and there is the great Abdullah Mosque, one of the finest, built by King Abdullah. On the gates you have the symbols of the sun. Same symbolism, same religion. On top, of course, now here you have the moon, the sickle moon, which the Catholic Church had on the clock. It was a symbol of Baal, or Baal. Inside this mosque, there are, of course, no pews, because in Islam you bow down and kneel on the floor, on the carpet. And if you look up at the tremendous dome, you have again the great solar blazes in this wonderful building. Islamic dress, well, you can look at old-fashioned Catholic nuns and you will find that the dress is identical. Catholic nuns wear the same dress as Islamic women of Orthodox faith. This is the great mosque in Damascus. Fascinatingly, inside the mosque, right inside is the shrine, and there is a Muslim man praying at this shrine. Now, who's he praying to? Is it to Allah there? No. He's worshipping a relic of the dead. Because this is the shrine of none other than John the Baptist. Now, if you know something about the Johannsenites, we've spoken about that, then you can already pick up, if you pick up the name John, you have Johansenism, then you have secret societies blended in the background. And they claim that this place has the head of John the Baptist. So an Islamic shrine in Damascus, this is, by the way, the oldest mosque, the most illustrious in that country, has this head. Fortunately, the Roman...
Okay, we have to break it off here, and we're all out of time. We'll be back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal. Again, if you want to donate directly to this show, go to arcticbeacon.com, and you can do that. You can see the donate button right there. Have a good evening, and back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.